So, do you want to introduce yourself briefly?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me on the show. My name's Fionn Travers-Smith, and I'm the producer and curator of the Cambodia Then and Now exhibition.
This is going to be one of those with a few different answers, I think. How long has this been in the making?
Very good question. This project has been in the offing for quite a long time now. I think I've been actively working on it for about a year and a half. I first started writing the funding application, and it really kicked off at the beginning of the year, about 6 months ago, when funding was eventually granted generously by the Arts Council England. But originally, the kind of genesis or the seed of the project began about 5 years ago when I left Cambodia after living there for the second time. I spent quite a lot of time interviewing people while I was there and recording those interviews as part of what I kind of called a documentary podcast, or an audio documentary, I mean. In that podcast, I was interviewing people about how their field of practice in Cambodia had been influenced by the genocide that happened there in the 70s, and how the past had influenced the present. So in many ways, it was the precursor project to this one. And as part of those interviews, I took quite a lot of portrait photography, and I always wanted to do something with them. But I was trying to think of a way to make it about more than just me and my experiences there, but also to try and bring in other people who have more direct experience, longer experience, lived experience of some of the topics and issues, some of which are really quite big topics, and really quite relevant topics as well to what's going on in the world today, from, refugeeism, war, culture and inequality. All of these kinds of things come up. So I definitely wanted it to be a collection of voices telling that story, particularly those with lived experience rather than just my own. And so when I got back to the UK in 2019, it'd been kind of sitting in the back of my mind since then, trying to work out how do I do that. And I think the obvious answer that I eventually came to was that this is a story about Cambodia. It has to be told by Cambodians, and it has to be done with the community that exists here. Although it is a very small community, it's a very tight-knit community in the UK. And so wanted to involve and engage that community as much as possible in the creation of this project. And so, that's why it's taken quite a long time of gestation to get to this point, but very happy that it has, and I think it's much better for it.
You said about living there. When did you first move out there?
I first lived there in 2013, only for 6 months, and originally intended to live there longer. It took me another 4 years until I went back in 2017 and was there for just over 2 years. So overall 2.5 years, which felt like a long time at the time, but now with me spending so much time looking at Cambodia and immersing myself in those memories and the history and the culture again, it reminds me of how good those times were and makes me wish I'd stayed a bit longer.
Going back even further, what drew you to Cambodia in the first place?
Yeah, it's a question I've been asked quite a few times since starting this project, and it's a really nice memory for me to relive. I first was captivated by Cambodia when I was about 15 years old, and I actually remember the moment really, really clearly because it's a bit of a turning point, I suppose, that has ended up defining and influencing my life to a significant degree. I was in a religious studies class, and the topic was places of worship. And I remember opening the textbook, and there was a Gothic cathedral. And I thought, wow, that looks really cool. But it's something that I'm quite used to in London. We have the Palace of Westminster and other Gothic buildings. So it was quite familiar in some ways. Then on the next page, there was this really ornate mosque. And again, thought it looked awesome, really enjoyed the architecture. But we have lots of mosques in the UK as well, especially in London. And so it wasn't something completely unfamiliar to me. And then I turned the page and there was a big picture of Angkor Wat, and I just remember having such a mind-blown moment, having no idea what this was and thinking it was so distinctive, so different, so oriental from what I was used to. And I was just immediately drawn and intrigued by it. And not long after looking into Angkor Wat, very quickly discovered the Khmer Rouge. And at the time, I was very interested in communism, and I found it fascinating that a seemingly noble aim of from each according to their ability to each according to their need could turn into such abject and terrible suffering and horror. And so I really wanted to understand how that had happened from a noble aim to a horrific circumstance or a horrific event. And so I started, did my kind of natural instinct is to kind of go down an academic path with it. I found the more that I learned, the less I understood. The less I understood, the more I wanted to learn. And it turned into a bit of a rabbit hole that, 20, more than 20 years later, I'm still yet to find the bottom of. So that was kind of what initially interested me in Cambodia. And I visited for the first time in 2007 and have been going back semi-regularly ever since. And it's just an absolutely absorbing and fascinating country. It has so much going for it, so many interesting facets of its society and its culture, but as I say as well, a really rich and varied history, not only from the genocide, which is really close to the surface and has influenced pretty much every area of society there, but also even going further back, this great empire many centuries ago under the Khmers and building all the Angkor Wat temples and a huge and densely complicated relationship with its neighbors throughout, all the way through to the present day and its role in geopolitics and the kind of strategic location, in Southeast Asia, that is kind of being fought over and increasingly of interest to different kind of great powers, as well as a preceding Cold War period as well. So just a really fascinating place, but most importantly of all, the people are just so resilient and lovely. It's actually quite humbling to go there, and it might sound a bit cliched or cheesy for someone like me to say that, but I got a huge feeling of openness and welcoming from the people there, probably more than almost anywhere else I've been in the world, and a real kind of generosity of spirit, and also like quite a cheeky, upbeat, kind of quite happy people I found, which it was remarkable given all of the strife and difficulties that they've been through over their recent past. So I found that an intoxicating mix, and to be honest, I still do. And that's part of the reason I wanted to do this exhibition, was to share that passion and share that love with others, so they can see that Cambodia is more than just a dark and bloody recent history. There's actually a huge diversity of cultural heritage to enjoy.
We're going to talk about an image you've passed across to me. We're going to share it on screen now. Can you tell us a little bit about this image and more broadly what people are going to get out of this exhibition?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are two questions there. So firstly, on the image, this is the image of a woman called Kem Suan, who is tending to the grave of a mass murderer. She is 61 years old, and she actually set up the pathway and what is now the memorial site for Pol Pot, who was the leader of the Khmer Rouge regime. And I find it a really captivating situation because in the whole world, really, Pol Pot is seen as a monster and, tantamount to an Asian Hitler, if you like. And yet here you have someone who's dedicating her later years, probably going to spend the last years of her life, sweeping the floor and ensuring that this grave is kept tidy and with respect. And, I think it reminds me that in all situations, no matter how seemingly black and white they are, that there's always nuance and there's always people with differing opinions, and that actually it's important to understand those opinions and engage with them rather than to alienate or disengage in most instances. And so that's kind of what this image is all about, is this kind of conflict at the heart of Cambodian history and Cambodian memory as to how does this brutal mass murderer be memorialized. In most of the country, as with the rest of the world, he's seen as a horrible person and a terrible influence on the country's history, but to small pockets of the society, he's still revered. And I find that quite fascinating and quite shocking, to be honest. And so that's kind of what this image captures. And more broadly, we've spoken about it a little bit already tonight, but I think the exhibition is trying to do a number of things. It's really trying to engage people on the story of Cambodia in the modern era, and to say that Cambodia is more than just a recent genocide. It's actually got a rich, diverse cultural history, and is a fascinating and amazing place that can and should be celebrated. It's the 70th year of their independence from colonialism, and so we're using that milestone as an opportunity to reflect that country's history and invite a conversation both amongst Cambodians and with British audiences to reflect on some of the themes and what a country that has emerged from mass violence can tell us really about the present day, and also about ourselves and our role in reducing and avoiding and minimizing and stopping instances of mass violence from occurring again. And obviously those themes are very resonant and very relevant right now, given everything that's going on in Europe and the Middle East especially. So that's a little bit more about the exhibition in general. What it actually contains: we have about over 150 exhibits, ranging from photography, graphic design, sculpture, painting, and more, that tell the story of Cambodia since independence in 1953 all the way to the present day. And so there's loads to see. It's been a real passion project and a lot of hard work. So I'm really excited to share it with others, and I hope you're able to join us.
Oh, I've been excited about it since we first met, which is actually only a few months ago now, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah, it feels like longer though.
So yeah, opening night is Tuesday 4th, right?
Yep. So there's a private view on June the 4th. We are oversubscribed for the private view, so if you're already signed up, then make sure you get down there early to avoid disappointment. And then after that, it's open from Wednesday the 5th to Sunday the 9th, open to the public between 11 and 6 p.m. every day. And it's on the Southbank, London's famous Southbank, at the gallery at Oxo, and the postcode is SE19PH. So nice and easy to find, and about 10 minutes walk from Waterloo Station.
Nice. Yeah, it's a short walk from my office, so I will be popping along there. If not on opening night, then definitely. Yeah.
Perfect.
So yeah, I recommend it to everyone. I've seen a little bit more than just that image myself, and it definitely looks like it's worth a go. So so yeah, thank you for coming on. Not live as intended, although some other time, maybe some other time.
Well,
Anyway,
thanks so much for having me, and it's great to see you, Mark.